Most of us don't have murderers and prostitutes in our family tree. Some of us have adulterers, liars, and cheats. But no matter what you have, Jesus can intervene in your life right now. Now, maybe your family's messed up. And that's why Christmas is hard, because it reminds you how messed up it is. And this dysfunction is put on display because you all have to gather in a place together. And the tension is there and the problems are there. Maybe you're estranged from your son or your daughter or your mom or your dad, or there's a lot of tension between you and your spouse. So here's something to consider. There's an old saying, an ounce of prevention is better than a ton of cure. What is the state of your family right now? I can't think of a better time to try to fix it than at the end of one year and the beginning of another, because these things can just carry on and then they can be passed from generation to generation. And the sins of the parents can be visited on the children. And you don't want that to happen. So you can put a stop to it. And men, I'm talking to you for a moment. You are called by the Lord to be the spiritual leader of your home. Yes, the wife has a responsibility. Yes, the children have a responsibility. But when the Lord directs his remarks to the Christian family, he starts with a man. And he says, men, love your wife as Christ loves the church. And I ask you today, guys, are you being the husband God has called you to be? Are you being the father God has called you to be? Are you being the spiritual leader that you are supposed to be? Don't let anything get in the way of you and your wife, and avoid flirtations, avoid anything that could weaken your marriage. And maybe some of you are playing around with something or dabbling in an area you should not be in. And I just want to encourage you and even exhort you today to say, don't do that, and do everything you can to strengthen your family. Now, wives, you're not off the hook here. The Lord has called you to love your husband. The Bible actually says to wives, love your husband. You know, when's the last time you told him? You know, he works hard. He carries the responsibility of the home. Have you told him how much you appreciate him? And not to in any way validate or justify a man going to another woman, but sometimes what happens is another girl will come along and say, oh, you're so clever and you're so handsome. And maybe they're lying, but still they say it. You know, and they come along and they appreciate him, and you might be taking him for granted. Listen, wives, tell your husband you love him. Tell him you appreciate, oh, he's a man, he doesn't need it. Oh, no, men need it. They may not even ask for it, but they want it. They want to be affirmed. You be the supporting, loving, nurturing wife that God has called you to be, and be the parent God has called you to be. You're to bring your children up in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. Yes, you are to set standards down, but you are also to keep lines of communication always open. You know, if you're estranged from your children today, let them know you love them still. You know, my son Christopher, who is now in heaven, did not always walk closely with the Lord. Though we raised him in a Christian home, and he went to Christian school and went to our Christian school here at Harvest, and we brought him to church every week. There was a time where he fell away from the Lord, but he always knew we loved him, and he told us that. He said, I always knew I could come home and that you loved me. In fact, he said in a conversation with a friend of ours that it was this knowledge that ultimately brought him back to recommit his life to the Lord, which he did. And we're so thankful for that. And I'm so glad that we didn't shut the door in his face. And your children need to know you love them. Even if they're doing things you don't approve of, you still love them. Do everything you can to keep those lines of communication open. If your marriage is unraveling, do everything you can to save it. If you're a single person, you're not off the hook. Be sexually pure. You know, some of these women we talked about messed their life up. There were repercussions. Be like Mary and Joseph, who are both godly, moral people, who, by the way, lived in a very godless and immoral place. You say, well, you can't do it in this day and age. Oh, sure you can. The Lord can give you the strength to walk closely with him. Listen, this is what Christmas is all about. It's about redemption. No matter what kind of mess you've made of your life, God can redeem it. But you need to come and say, well, Lord, here it is. Help me, Lord, sort this out. And you watch what the Lord will do. If the story of Jesus tells us nothing else, it tells us that.